College is a time to socialize, grow, and find out who you really are. But unfortunately, college was the time where four kids lost their lives November 13th, 2023. And what's scary is the motive is still kind of unknown. For the fall semester of 2022, five girls that were attending the University of Idaho all rented a big house together. This was a massive house. This was 3 stories and 6 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms on each floor of the house. Now, the night before, the 12th, all of these college students pretty much went out with their friends to parties, like kids normally do. Two of those were Xana Kernoble and her boyfriend, Ethan Chapman. They were seen throughout the night together, partying and having a good time. They returned home at about 1:45 a.m. Xana lived in this house with her friends, and Ethan was her boyfriend and just staying over that night. Two other girls were seen going to parties that night, and that was Madison Mogul, who lived in the home, and her friend, Kaylee Gonkows. Kaylee did live at the home at one point, but she moved out and was just in the home, just kind of hanging out with her best friend, who was Madison. They went to a club and then they went to a food truck afterwards, got food, and then returned home. We saw the footage of them going to this food truck, and that was analyzed by a lot of people. They came home at about 1:56 a.m. Two other roommates were in the house that night. They were unharmed, untouched, and were in different places at the house, and we will discuss that. So, what we believe is that everyone returned home by that 2 o'clock a.m. mark. What we believe is one of the surviving roommates was on the bottom floor. Ethan and Xana was in one room on the second floor, and another surviving roommate was on another room on that second floor. Then Madison and Kaylee were on the third floor in one room. It's very hard to picture, and I've tried to break it down as much as I can for you guys, but this house is very massive, has a lot of rooms, and there was a lot of stuff going on that night. Now, when this takes place, we do believe that everyone was in their rooms. No one was gathered together. They were all in the separate rooms. Madison and Kaylee in one, Xana and Ethan, and then the two surviving roommates were in two separate rooms. And some were awake, some were asleep. We really don't know what was happening here. What we do know is Xana had a delivery from DoorDash at 4 a.m. Now, the rest of this story is what we have heard from one of the surviving roommates. We don't really know what happened with everyone else other than what this surviving roommate has told. She states that she woke up at about 4 a.m. and she heard what sounded like Xana playing with her dog. Then she thought she heard Kaylee say, "Someone is here." She stated that she looked at her door but didn't see anything or anyone. Then she heard crying coming from Xana's room, so she looked out again, but still didn't see anything or anyone. She thought she heard a male voice say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." And that is when she looked out and she saw a very chilling sight. She saw a man walking towards her that she had never seen before. Some reports say that he was in a mask, some says that he was not in a mask, but he walked towards her and then walked out the door that was right by her, so walked outside. He didn't say anything to her at all, but he knew that she was there, and she didn't say anything either. She said she was frozen because she was so scared. She describes him as 5'10" or taller, not very muscular, but a thinner build, and bushy eyebrows. Again, he did not harm her or say anything to her, he just walked right past her. The other surviving roommate was in the lower floor. She did not hear anything, didn't awake, didn't anything. She didn't hear anything that had happened at all, which a lot of people say is very weird. And I do have to admit that was very strange that this surviving roommate didn't hear anything. I will say college houses are extremely noisy, and maybe she just slept through things, but it's very strange. Now, it is the assumption that that one surviving roommate that saw the intruder just went to sleep because there was no report of anything until the next morning. I guess one surviving roommate called a friend because she thought one of her roommates had passed out and was not waking up. And then at 11:58, you get a call to 911 asking for help. So that whole time, no one called anybody, no one did anything to help these people. You just have just this blank period of time. The 911 call asked for help for an unconscious person. When police arrived, they found the four victims that were in the house. This is in the time of the media, and trust me, it went wild. There were sleuths everywhere. There was people showing up at the house. There was people blaming people. People analyzed that food truck thing. They blamed the neighbors. They blamed people in town. They blamed the roommates. Media went wild at this point, and I don't know if it harmed or made the situation better, but we just got like a slew of just crazy amounts of information that some of them are wrong, some of them are right, and it wasn't made any better by the pictures that were coming out. There was a picture coming out of the side of the house with red coming down. People went wild with what went on in that house, and some of it was not even true. So we got a period of not knowing who was out there, who did this. This was a scary time, especially in that community, because there was all of these college students who didn't know what was happening or if there was a threat to them. And that's what brings us to Brian Koberger. He was arrested for this crime and will stand trial next year for this. But I want to dive in to see really who Brian Koberger is and if he really did this crime. Because there's a lot of people who believe that he didn't, and there's a lot of people who believe that he did. So there's two sides to every story, and I want to dive into both, and I want to get your opinions. So before I dive in, just with an overview of the case, what are your opinions? Do you know Brian Koberger and his story, and do you believe he did it? But what are your opinions on the whole case? Please let me know in the comments below. And I just want to say, now that I have the time, this case is horrific, and the things that happened to these four young kids is, I mean, unimaginable. My heart and my feelings go out to their families, this community who is now struggling. I it, my heart goes to you. My well wishes go to you. And I just can't imagine.